It is a truth universally acknowledged that it's been overnight in New York State for the past week, and that's why the air conditioner is so goddamn loud. Hi, I'm Paige Rakowski, and today we're delving deep into the history of the Big Three, their backstories, their parentage, and if they're gods or monsters.
The intro song to the video. If I had merch, I'd tell you to buy it now. Subscribe.
To kick this video off, I would like to say hello.
Hello?
Yeah, that's it. I'd also like to start this video off by saying that I have been requested to do this in my fake British Australian accent. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Timmy. You are the greatest dog.
Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. If you...
Just do it. That's an order.
Okay, I'm starting the accent now. So now I'm going to be a lot...
More scary?
So now all of you are going to have to treat me with a lot more respect because...
Scary accents mean royalty.
This video is the second in a series about me detailing the character development and just development in general of a book series that I'm creating called Wicked Ways. The first book is on Wattpad right now. It's currently being written. It's called Wicked Ways Genesis. You can hit me up on Wattpad at MajesticRubyRed03. You can see my Instagram at ScotusSuperfans1781. And you can also hit me up on my other Instagram, pmaiko.pics. It's a photography account and it's my pride and joy. I don't go on Twitter. I have a Twitter. I don't use it, so therefore I'm not going to tell any of you what it is. And I also have a Facebook that I don't like and don't use, so therefore I'm not telling you. Let's get into the video.
I'd like to warn you right now, I'm starting the accent, and if you don't like it, don't come for me.
I think the only place for us to start is at the very beginning. Because, as Julie Andrews once said, it's a very good place to start.
We get it. You're funny. You're cultured. Ha 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 ha.
Our story begins with Honestas Olvidar, born to Lagatha Lofe Olvidar and Caligula Augustus Olvidar in the year of 1860 on October the 31st. She was born in Scotland. However, with the rest of the Big Three as well, it is very unknown where they were actually born and grew up. Perhaps due to just strange Victorian record-keeping that we are not used to, bad record-keeping because they are wizards, of course, or just perhaps they just don't like people to know. Or the people of those towns don't want other people to know that they're from there because, let's face it,
They're the worst of the bloody worst.
Honestas Olvidar attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry from 1871 to 1877, where in 1876 she participated in the Potions Championship that basically took kids from a bunch of the biggest wizarding schools in the world and brought them together to
Make potions?
It was at this tournament that she met one of the other Big Three, Celestinus Victorina, who we will talk about next. But that is kind of... It's the catalyst.
The catalyst.
For all of this, really, if you really think about it. If she had never participated in that championship, nothing would have happened afterwards. She wouldn't have met Celestinus and Katerina, and she wouldn't have had her child, who would eventually be her downfall.
Such is life, am I right?
Lagatha Lofe Olvidar was very similar to what her daughter would become. Basically, a serial killer? For lack of a better word, I think that's the only real way that we can describe the entire Olvidar family, basically. Let it be known that Honestas' father did take her mother's last name when they married. They are both pretty just...
Wicked?
And I think... I know evil and wicked and all of those words are very subjective to the person, and everyone thinks of evil in a different way, but I think everyone who will read this story can understand that Honestas Olvidar is just...
The what?
And I think that's the only thing that you should really take away from this, is that she is the worst. She was raised from a very young age to incite chaos and malice into everything that she does. I think that's the only way I can really explain it. The Olvidar family is a pure-blooded family, but they are as old as magic is old. There's rumours that they've been around since even before Merlin. Merlin being the greatest of the early wizards of old. So as long as there has been magic, there has been Olvidar.
Put that on a t-shirt, am I right, my ladies and men and my non-binary friends?
But as long as there has been Olvidar, there has been evil. Honestas says in the book, in chapter 4, that her mother herself taught her the method, the Olvidar method of murder. She doesn't kill everyone, that should be noted, but other than that, she's pretty ruthless. And we'll get into that in a bit. But basically, Honestas Olvidar was raised to be evil. You know, they say good is the new bad, but bad isn't really good. So, what does that make good? A waste of time, if you ask me. The year 1896 marked the peak of reign for all three of the BTs, or BTs, I've been saying that a lot. BTs stands for Big Three. Basically, the big trio that kind of runs most of the Isle, which I will explain completely in the next video in this series. So, 1896, all three of the BTs were really started to work together about this point in time and came up with this master plan to take over the world by using their specific skill sets to take over political figureheads in different sectors of the globe. When those sectors being the Vatican, the Ottoman Empire, which was already in peak of decline at this point, which would later decline right after World War One, and then finally the Qing Empire, the Qing dynasty in China. So in 1896, Honestas' part of this plan was to use her utmost magical knowledge and knowledge of blood magic, really. Blood magic is dark magic that corrupts the soul of all those who use it and use it on and the people who it's used on. So in 1896, Honestas Olvidar used her specific skill set and knowledge that she gained from her mother, as well as the Olvidar family spellbook that she gives to her daughter in 1993 to 1992 to take over the Vatican. She kills the Pope, basically, and it's a big deal.
Obviously.
Who kills the Pope? Only the worst person on earth that hot would kill the Pope. I'm going to briefly discuss the method to which she does this. She explains it a lot more in the books, let that be known, but, and by she, I mean Oswin. I will discuss it briefly, just say generally what it is. It's pretty horrific. I think horrific is an understatement in this case, but, let it be known that, if you don't like murder, skip forward, like, 30 seconds, I think. Maybe 20 to 30 seconds from, like 5 seconds from now.
I'm not going to give a super gory description of what it is, but some people just get grossed out by the idea that it's possible, so yeah.
The Olvidar method of killing is basically to do this medieval torture method, which is called splayed eagle, which is you cut open the skin of the back, flay out the rib cage, which is a thing that you can do, and then the Olvidars would then rip out their hearts, put them on pikes, and set them on fire, and basically make the person that they're murdering watch their heart die as all the blood just rushes out of their body and their brain shuts down. So that's really nice and fun. Sounds like a good time if you ask me. Bring this girl to a party, you know?
I don't actually condone murder. I was making a joke, but I think you can tell that I was making a joke because, like,
It's now my accent's now gone completely Australian, so I am very sorry.
I'm trying.
But I'm really focused. And I have a one-track mind. So let's don't be too harsh. All this happened in the early months of 1896. So by mid-1896, everyone had really gone back to England, in the English countryside, and had been taking on aliases, trying to hide in plain sight, basically. But by mid-1896, all three of them were caught and sent to Azkaban. In the late months of 1896 is when Abestellos Isle, or the Isle of the Lost, or the Isle of Death, as it's sometimes called apparently in the media, was built and really fortified. And the barriers were put up and all of that. So, and a lot of the people who were sent to the Isle in 1897 actually didn't commit major crimes. I mean, you have the big three, and you have the big pirates that were sent there, and they hate each other. So that means constant war. But a lot of the people that were sent there were just ordinary people who maybe who were wrongly accused of crimes or committed very, very obscure, petty crimes. Well, not obscure, like cat burglary and graffiti and things like that. So not everyone on the Isle is a bloodthirsty murderer. For one, don't forget that. That's kind of the everything that this entire series is based upon. That you should not judge a book by its cover. Just
Don't stereotype. They were sent to Abestellos Isle in the early months of 1897, and they were left there forever. You might be wondering, how does she have a daughter in 1992? I can explain this. Before they all went their separate ways, the BTs, that is, to go along with their plan, they conducted a blood ritual of an aging spell. Basically, they blood bonded to each other, connected all of their souls together, and then placed an aging spell upon themselves, and basically it makes them age a lot slower than the rest of people who were their age. I think we mapped it out that, by we, I mean me and the person I'm working with this on, we mapped out that technically that would be, they age 100% less than everyone else. And because blood magic physically changes your DNA, their children therefore age 50% slower than everyone else. So, and it's kind of just that whole half-life cycle. So, and I think we mapped out that 4 or 5 generations after them is going to have basically a normal aging rate. So I hope that answers your question if you were thinking that.
the Isle of the Lost. As I said before, the bigger people that were sent there were the BTs and the pirates. They hate each other, basically. Big feuds about territory, and even before they were sent there, they're just very preeminent. I mean, and then none of them are either really willing to compromise. So they're kind of just stuck in that temporal void of hatred, which is one of the reasons why the Isle is so bloody toxic. But while they were on the Isle, and obviously aging a lot slower than everyone else, Honestas got romantically involved with a man called Vulcan Fidelis, who was a soul keeper, basically. An assassin of sorts, I think is the only way I can really explain him, is that he was just basically an assassin. Really, really cold, really similar to her, which is why they got off on foot, at first, at least. In about late 1974, Honestas Olvidar gets pregnant, and Fidelis up and leaves. And he makes his own little secret district, basically, underneath the Isle, So basically, Vulcan Fidelis is also the worst. It's debatable at this point whether he's as bad as or worse than Honestas, but you know what, they're both pretty bad, so let's just leave it at that, eh? Our next person of intrigue he goes by the name of Celestinus Victorina. Well, Celestinus Octavius Victorina, who was born to Claudia Rosa Victorina and Fiere Victorina on April 1st of 1860 in the south of Italy. Again, the exact location to which he was born is completely unknown. Unlike Honestas, Celestinus was not born in England, so therefore he did not attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Mystery. According to J.K. Rowling, there are 4 distinct schools, well, 3, that are completely unknown to us in origin. She recently revealed that one of the original 4 is in Russia. Me and the person I'm working on this book with took it upon ourselves to create the next 3. So the school that he's attending is actually in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and it's called Aqua Divina School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And he attends the same, basically, time span as Honestas, so 71 to about 77. 1877, that is. The actual evilness, I guess if there's like a spectrum for evilness, where Celestinus' parents actually lie on the spectrum is completely unknown to us. However, we do know that they, although they may not be completely evil and may not try to take over the world, that they are not great people. They have certain moral discrepancies, although he does not talk about his past much, nor does Ophelia really know much of it. Ophelia is his daughter. There'll be a whole series of episodes on the VCKs, because each of them is just so, you know? Whilst at Aqua Divinos, Celestinus comes in contact with the 3rd member of the BTs, Katerina Astrea, who we will talk about next, obviously, because there's only 3 of them. So I would assume that, and I'm sorry for judging your ignorance, audience. You're not idiots. You all have brains. And I've just acknowledged it. Wow. In the year 1895, Celestinus becomes the ambassador to China for the Ministry of Magic. And while he's there, serving on the court of the Emperor of China, Zaishan, I believe is how you say it. I'm probably wrong. Zaitian. That was in a complete American accent. But while he was serving the Emperor of China, this is Qing China, by the way, he meets a woman by the name of Zhuan, who was basically a muggle, but is technically a concubine, I think is what we've come to the consensus on in the royal court. And he falls in love with her and begins to court her in secret. But in the early months of 1896, much like Honestas, Celestinus poisons the Emperor of China and takes tapestry, to which was gifted to him by the multiple British missions that have come by the Ministry of Magic. And that emperor was replaced, actually, by Chinese ministry officials, by use of Polyjuice potion. I did do some research on the Polyjuice potion, and depending on the strength of the brew, it can last between 10 minutes and 12 hours. That's a lot of Polyjuice potion, because this emperor, the last emperor of Qing China, I believe, and actually, don't quote me on that, not the last emperor of Qing China, but this emperor supposedly lives until 1903 or 1908. I forgot to mention before, they all take kind of like, they call it their trophies, from the person that or the place that they conquer. So Celestinus takes the tapestry from the Chinese throne room. Honestas takes a red ruby off of the headdress of the Pope. And now, that leads us into our last but not least person. Now, this leads us into our final character. And finally, last but not least, Katerina Astrea. If you know anything about Egyptian mythology and gods and like Armageddon for Egyptian mythology, I think you'll have a nice laugh at her middle name. I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay, that's actually a lie because this video isn't over and I'm like still talking, so I'm still gonna be talking, so yeah.
Katerina Astrea was born to Sophia Sethunia Astrea and Emmanuel Hassim Astrea on December the 25th of 1860. Much like the others, we don't know exactly where she was born. However, we do know that she was born either in Egypt or somewhere on the Arabian Peninsula. She also attended Aquadivina school, as I said before. She attended with Celestinus and befriended him while she was there. Her parents were not evil per se. They were incredibly religious. If you know any Hebrew, you know that Emmanuel and Hassim are both Hebrew names or have Hebrew origin. So I think that much is obvious. But she herself is not a Hebrew. She is a self-proclaimed pagan, as most people on the Isle are. I think the only person that I've written about that doesn't have a select set of gods that they worship is Celestinus. Her part of the world domination plot was to in 1896, as I've probably said a million times. How many times have I said 1896 in this video? Put in the comments down below, because I'm really curious. In 1896, Katerina went undercover in the court of the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, which at the time was Abdul Hamid. These are all the Mughal rulers, by the way. They're taking over the Mughal world, which is why it's terrible and needs to be stopped, and why the Ministry of Magic and their foreign officials really do start to take action against them, because they could oust the entire wizarding world. They could have just taken over the ministries of those countries, but they did not. Katerina is a bit of a seductress, I guess, but not in the traditional sense. She's apparently incredibly persuasive, or at least her tongue is. So she used her language to get good with the Sultan, and I don't mean the other type of get good. I mean just like giddy up to him, you know. But when she took over the Ottoman Empire for that really short amount of time, she trapped the Sultan in a magic lamp that she kept as her trophy, which would be used by her son to initiate the beginning of the end of the Isle, the Lost, in about the Battle of the Isles in 1998. So, for reference, when on the Isle, when it was created in 1997, she kind of had a one-night stand with a man, with a Viking, I guess, is with a Norse a Norse bloke, how about that, by the name of Leah Godwine, who's really not evil at all. Petty crimes. He was on the Isle for petty crimes. She had a child. She bore his child, but she refused to let him anywhere near him. So she exiled him from the territory that the BTs had claimed themselves. These three people, these three villains, conductors of malice, whatever you want to call them, they proclaimed themselves to be gods. I had to sit down and try to think about what it really means to be a god. I went on Oxford Dictionary and I got some definitions that might clear some of the air in here. Or that's the air conditioner. I'm switching back to my normal accent. According to Oxford Dictionary, there are two definitions for God. Gods. A god can either be the creator or ruler of the universe and source of all moral authority, a supreme being, or a superhuman being or spirit worshipped as having power over nature or human fortunes, a deity. So then I went and I looked up what the word deity, what the actual dictionary definition of deity is. And it said it's a person or a creature, I guess, a being that has divine status and is a creator and supreme being, or has the powers of immortality and is incredibly powerful. Of every single definition that I had looked up, that latter one, that last one, is the one that fits to all three of them the most. They did not create this universe. They had no part in its creation. They didn't make the Big Bang happen. Definitely not. They don't have moral authority. They are the opposite of moral. They are
Immoral.
But they market themselves as gods. In my study of world history, my 2 years of taking AP World, my personal exploration, I have come to realize that a lot of polytheistic religions, mainly, were the first ones that popped up, are dictated by fear about what would happen to you if you didn't do what the gods wanted, if you didn't put a sacrifice upon the altar, if you didn't celebrate this one specific holiday. It's all about what would happen if you didn't do something, or if you did do something, like if you killed someone, what would happen to you when you reached the afterworld. I think the afterlife is the main driving force. One, because nobody knows what actually happens to you, and two, because there's two places you can go. It's a place where all the good people go, or a place where all the bad people go. Well, technically there's three places. Is purgatory really an afterlife? Like, what is, that's a whole other story. I'm not even, no, not getting into that. People fear gods. Even the Christian God. Even though Christianity is marketed as God is so benevolent and he will deliver thee from evil, there's still incredible consequences for committing any kind of sin. None of these three people are Christians. I am not a Christian. I'm definitely not an expert in this. Don't take my word.
As God.
I would love to have a conversation about this with someone in the comments. I really don't care. I love hearing other people's opinions. I really want to know what everyone thinks of this idea. Let's keep it at that. All their tactics in world domination were about instilling fear in the masses, but swindling the nobles. I mean, the names that they were given because of this situation really didn't help either. Katerina Astrea, her nickname, it's just like her super villain name is the succubus of Sinai. Like, Celestinus is the Roman riotous, and Honestas is the homicidal heathen. Like, I mean, as much as they are instilling fear in the masses, I think their government is also instilling fear in the people to fear them. I think life is a big cycle of fear. Everyone is afraid of something. But I also think that life is dictated by power. Everyone wants it, at least a little bit. Not everyone wants to rule the world, but at the same time, those who do use the same tactics as those who want to coach the football team. When you think about it, these people shouldn't be treated as gods. For they're just people. They may be wizards. They may have the ability to use magic. But does that make them any more godlike? They're not immortal, technically. They just age slower than everyone else. So, what makes them gods? My answer is that they're not. They're people playing God. People love to play God. They do it all the time, every single day. People in high positions of power like to think that they have more power than they do. We see it everywhere. Every country, every state or region, every province, everywhere. People thrive on power. It's not even just the power aspect. It's the feeling of being in charge, of having people follow you. That's the addictive part. That's why people crave it. They want it's not just the power, it's the authority, the recognition that you get. Because power and authority are different. They don't have any authority. Or I guess if they did have authority, it'd be based completely on fear. The BTs are not gods. The BTs are monsters. And I can say that 100% clearly because they murdered innocent people to kill figureheads of countries. They're not just figureheads, though. I say figureheads, but they're not figureheads. Political rulers. Take the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, for instance. He is the last of the Ottoman emperors. Or second to last. His empire is falling apart and he can do nothing except try and ease the tension. But easing the tension does not help when it was supposed to have been done 100 years ago. His power is what makes the world go round. It's not money. It's power. But money is power. I don't think we should worship people. Thank you all for watching this video. If you liked it, press like. If you have questions, comments down below. What do you think about people playing God? Power, authority? I want to know. Hit me up. Hit me up on my Instagram. DM me. Next week, we will have a full history of Abestellos Isle, the inner workings of it, blueprint kind of, the deets. Where people live, what people can interact with what people, laws, ordinances, major events that will happen in the timeline on the Isle. The curse, the prophecy. More to come next week. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Stay safe. Wear a mask in public. Thank you. And also, Black Lives Matter.